Hello everyone. In this video we are going to talk about creating plots in Excel. So there are different types of plot. If you go under Insert, you are going to see here in the middle there are different types, categories of plots, and the ones I would like to work on is basically the scatter data with lines connecting them. And I will show you an example of column or bar plots, we call them. I will show you an example of a pie chart. I will show you examples of 3D plots, like a surface plot and a contour plot. Yes, in Excel you can do a surface plot too. Now it's not going to be as easy and as fancy as what you can do in, let's say, MATLAB, but yes, you still can do it. And I will show you a histogram plot and a box plot. Okay, so I'm going to show you some basics of this plots. The rest of them, like waterfall, or let's say here, we're going to have something separate about the pivot tables, but the rest of them are really nothing that will add like these ones. The tree map or the sunburst or stuff, like they're not really anything special. These main plots are the ones that I told you, right? And I always teach them in my MATLAB class as well, how to create plots like that. So what I have here is a bunch of x values which can represent the deflection of a spring, and then the constant of a linear spring k, and then the force of the spring, right? F in magnitude equal k times x. So you can see that formula here. And I added a little bit of randomness to the data to represent actual experiments that you do in the hook experiment, right? In the hooks experiment, you basically suspend a mass of W from a spring and let it go to static equilibrium, and then you measure the deflection and then plot the spring force, which is equal to the weight of that parts that you suspended versus the deflection that you measured, right? And definitely they are not going to be on a perfect line, especially if the deflection is large, then definitely the behavior is not going to be linear. But here we assume that the maximum deflection is not huge. And so this 10 is not like 10 meters, probably 10 mils or something. And so the plot can behave linearly. So here is the plot of spring force, linear spring force versus deflection. And if I want to plot this FL versus X here in Excel, what I can do is I go to, as I said, insert, and then there are different types of plots here. I can go to these 2D lines if I want, right? Lines with markers and so on. There are different types, or I can go to this scatter and do a scatter with line as well. The result is relatively the same. So here, let's say if I go with this scatter, let's do a scatter plot with lines. So I create on it and it gives me this blank window, but now it is time to add the data. Or we can select the data first and then click on that chart, right? So there are two approaches. Either you first create the blank chart and then you right click and say select data, or as I said, you can select this data ahead of time and then go and say what? Insert, and then try to create a data like this. Okay, when you do that, it is like you already selected your data. Okay, so it could be a good thing to save time. But I just want to show you how to select data. That's why I didn't do this ahead of time. So I would like to create this blank one, and I right click and then I say select data. And then here it says, okay, what do you want? Do you want to add a series, which is basically a curve? You say yes, add one for me. It says, what's the name of it? And I call it linear spring. And then it says, okay, what are your x values? What are your y values? So these are my horizontal axis. I choose them. And I OK that. And then here you click on this to choose your y values, which for me are the spring forces. And I get that one as well. And then I OK that and OK. And there we go. I got the same thing. Okay, so here I got my plot of FL versus X. Now here it might say, well, I made this fine, but now can I do some modifications on it? Can I add like X and Y labels, right? I want this to be a little bit more sophisticated. Can I change the color? Can I do anything? Sure. So if you click on this window of the plot, then these three symbols appear, and if you click on this plus here, it allows you to add axis titles, data labels if you want to show the numbers on them, error bars if there is any error bar. Here there is not. Legend is good when you have more than one data series, and then if you want red line or anything else. So to make this nice with the legend, let me do something. First, I'm going to add another curve here, another data series, which is the force in a nonlinear spring. So if the spring deflection is large, then the force in the spring is not simply going to be k times x. It's not going to be like that. By the way, here I made it a subscript, so I have to go back and change it back to normal. Okay, so I removed that, and now I say this is equal to k times x. Okay, now the nonlinear force, if I want that, so you see here, if you go to home and click on this icon next to the font, you can go and change anything to superscript, subscript, and so on. So I remove it so it goes back to normal. So the formula for it is going to be like k1x plus k2 times x cubed. Okay, now here if you want, you can definitely change this 1 and cubed and everything to what you want. Like if you want to make these subscripts, you can easily do that, right? So here I made it a subscript. I can do the same thing for this one. And this power 3, I can make it a superscript. And here we go, right? And I can do the same thing here for this 2 and that one as well. So you can easily change any text to superscript. It's not as easy as Microsoft Word that you have subscript and superscript here, but as I said, in Microsoft Excel and PowerPoint, you can click here and change them to sub or superscript. So that's the formula that you have for a nonlinear spring. When deflections are large, then you can show that for many metallic material used, if the spring is made of specific types of metals like steel or aluminum, the behavior is going to be nonlinear and it's going to be cubic, and this term we call it strain hardening, and so the behavior is going to be cubic. So here I have another curve I want to create, and that is this f of nonlinear versus x. Okay, so I want to add another curve on the top of this. And that's what you do in MATLAB with hold on, right? So here, let's do that. So I right click again here to add some data. So I say select data. Already I have linear spring, so I add one more. And this one I call nonlinear spring. Again, the x values are the same as this range. And my y values are this time these guys. I OK that, and OK and OK, and there we go. You clearly see the behavior of linear versus nonlinear quite different. And here maybe I bring down a little bit the nonlinear values to bring down that thing. Maybe that's just too much. Let me get it a little bit closer. Maybe even this is smaller. Let's see here. This is better. Okay, so here I have created both of these curves, the red one nonlinear, the blue one linear, but I don't know which one is which. But if I click, as I said here, and go to plus and add a legend, now it shows me which one is which, and then I add axis titles or axis labels. Okay, and now I can type whatever I want. So here I make it X, right? And here I double click on this and make it like F in the spring. Okay, so here we go. Now I have a nice plot with axis labels, with legend and everything. And if I want, I can add a chart title. and say, let's say linear versus non-linear spring. Okay, so you can do whatever you want, add anything and make it a nice plot. Now, you can also resize this if you want, make it bigger, correct? You see? You can make the whole window bigger, right? Or you can make the axis bigger. Okay, so you can resize them as well. And there are a lot more stuff that you can do. Let's say, for example, you don't like the color of this, right? So you can click on that, and now if you go to here to the color, you can change the color of whole thing. But if you want to change specifically color of one curve or the shape of markers, then you can click on that, and then you right click here, and then if you go here to format data series, you can do the change here. But also, if you looked, it gives you the option right here when you right click. And you right click, it directly gives you this option here for fill and outline. Okay, so here if I go, let's see if I can change that. So here is the shape of marker, the color of markers. So this is going to change the color of markers for me, right? So I can make the markers green, for example, if I want. But that outline was what? That's the color of the lines connecting the markers. Okay, so the outline and the fill are two different things, right? The color of the line and the color of the markers. So if I want, I can change that way too. Okay, so that's about changing the color of a curve if you don't like it. What else can we do to this plot? So if you don't like these grid lines, you can turn them off. Okay, maybe you don't like the grid lines, so turn them off like that. Then here you can do some filtering. If you don't want to show some data, you can just turn it off or show it. So let's say I'm good right now about this. What else can you do? So as I told you, if you right click in the white space, it gives you some options where you can add data, you can move the chart, you can go to format chart area, and here you have some options. Let me see if I can move this guy a little bit to this side. There we go. So this is the format chart area, and you can do filling like that or no filling. Okay, and gradient fill, you can do anything that you want to the color of the background, right? And you can change the color of the background, so you can do anything that you desire. You can add borders if you want, like that. You see, right now you have solid borders, and you can change the position of it. You can make it transparent if you want, so you can see behind it. You can change the brightness of it or anything that you want. You can make the corners rounded. So these are all those fancy things you can do to get a nice shape. But also you can add shadows, right? You can make it look like a 3D format. You can give depth to it. You can add like material to it as well and make it even fancier, especially when you make it 3D. When you make it 3D and add some shapes to it like this, okay, they look quite nice, don't they? So there are so many options you can do. You can change the height, you can change the width, you can change the scaling, you can lock the aspect ratio. So if you change height, the width also changes with that same ratio. And you can do a bunch of things for that plot. Okay, so this is format chart area that you can do. And I told you about select data. These are the important things. You can even change the chart type. If you're not happy with this, you want to change it to a bar plot or pie plot or whatever, you can do that. But now, as I said, if you right click now on these values on the axes, right? If you right click here, then it gives you different options. and you can add minor grid lines or major grid lines. You see here. So if you want, you can add grid lines on only one axis like that, or major grid lines, which the color is going to be different and the sizes are going to be different, the location of them actually. And then the most important thing is this one, format axis. If you go to format axis, then you can change the location of min and max. So here my max is 10, but the axis is continued all the way to 12. If you're not happy about it, go ahead and make it 10, right? So you can have the option, that's like the command axis in MATLAB, right? So let's go back and see what else you can do. Then the units, what do you want them to jump? So here you see they jump every 2 units, right? So maybe I want them to jump every 1 unit because my x's are incremented by 1. Okay, so you see I have control over that. Or do you want to display units, right? You want to display units. What kind of units you want to show? Then the tick marks. Correct? Do you want to show tick marks, labels, and so on? So there are lots of options here that you can do. And you can change about the axis, right? You can change the color of it and so on and so forth, right? So there are lots of things that you can do, and you can control how your axis would look like, the x-axis or the y-axis, right? So I'm not going to go through each and every one of them, but just want you to see how they look like, right? So here it seems like I added some shadows or something without me paying attention. So this is about right-clicking on axis and formatting the axis. But as I told you, if you also right-click on the curve or the data, okay, then you can say format data series, and it gives you primary axis or secondary axis, right? And here, as you can see, I can change the color of them. I can see the size of the lines and the markers in terms of number of points, so I can make them thicker if I want, right? And the it says cap type and join type, right? So here they are both round. Now if I make it square, you see that's different than the marker, okay? So this cap type or join type, these are not markers, so do not think that if you change those you are changing the markers, okay? So that's why let me just go back to round, okay? When you don't know something, don't change it. You might say, what are they? If you want, I'll tell you, but right now I do not want you to change those. What is cap type, what is joint type? So let's keep it right now as is. Okay, if you want, in a separate video, I'll go into more advanced controls for a plot. And then you can change the weight of them. So if you want, instead of solid, you can make them like dash lines or anything for that matter. Correct? So you can change those. Good. So that's your line. And then here you see that was the options for line. Now there is an option for markers. And here you can have your markers filled, solid fill, no fill, and so on. There is the color for the markers, right, that you can change. And let's see what else we have that we can change here. So you can change the color of the markers separately from the lines. I'm trying to see what else is good for you here. Nothing as I can see. Then in this here, again, I don't see anything super important right now to go into. And that was for the primary axis. And then you can go to the secondary axis and do the option and add a secondary axis if you want. Now, primary axis means only one y and one x. If you say secondary axis, it is going to create two y-axes on each side, and I don't really recommend changing that as of now because it could be quite confusing. Okay, I know you are waiting for me to say how to change the shape of the marker, so let's do it. So as I said, when I click on this curve and it gives me the format data series, and this guy came that we changed the shape and color and everything. So if you remember in the line we did change the line. Let me change the line back to solid. I prefer actually solid, and that is too thick. Let me also change back the number of points for the width. I guess I made it too thick. Maybe 2 is good, right? So if you look here, when we clicked on this and we went here, we had line and we had marker, right? And we clicked on marker and we looked at fill, border, and so on. But there is one here at the top says marker options. And if you click on that, then you have automatic, you have none, and you have built-in. If you want to change, you go to built-in, and now there are different shapes of markers that you can either get from defaults of Excel, or you enter a picture for the shape of the marker you prefer, and you can add your own shape of marker, okay? So let's say I prefer triangles, and here you can say how many points they are, and there we go, boom. You got your markers changed. And so this is most of the stuff that we do also in MATLAB. These are most of the options that we have over there, so you can have them over here as well. Okay, so this is creating a scatter plot with line. And this is the most important, the most useful type of plot that you have in Excel. But that's not the only one. There are a bunch more that you can create. You might say, well, like what? Like a function like this. Can you create a surface for a 3D function like z equal x squared plus y squared, where x is between 1 to 6 and y is also between 1 to 6. So let's say this is what I want. Where is that here? So let's say this is what I want to create, okay? This is the function I'm going to try to create a surface for. Can I do that? Sure. So what you need is you have to create a mesh, just like what we had in MATLAB. So here, let's say my x datas are here from 1 to 6 with increment of 1, and y the same. I have values of y from 1 to 6. Now what I do is this. Here I come and say the values here are changing for the same value of y for different values of x. So on this column, the y is constant, but the x's are changing. And as you can see, look here, look at the formula. The C4 that I gave is a relative referencing. So when I move this down and extend it, C4 goes to what? Goes to C5, goes to C6, as you can see, and so on. But the value of y, which is D3, I use $, so it's absolute, and it's not going to change as I go down the column. So for this column, again, y is set at 1, x can change. Then I repeat the same thing for this column. Y stays at 2, x can change. Y stays at 3, x can change, and so on. And so now, these data here are like what? Are like those mesh values, right, that I created, let's say in MATLAB, and now that I have these two parameters, x and y, which can change overall in this table of data. Now I can generate a surface. Seriously? Yes. So I go to insert, and then you see here, I can have a surface plot. I can have a surface plot which is wireframe. I prefer the regular shaded surface plot. And what I do here is I choose all of this data, including values of x and y, go here and then say what? Give me a surface plot. And boom, you got your surface plot. You see here, x and y changing from 1 to 6 in each direction. This is x, this is y, and the z is going anywhere from 2, which is the smallest number, to 72, which is the highest number. And this is a part of that surface, which is for x and y between 1 and 6. Now, if you want better resolution, you have to add more data, of course, right? You have to add better resolution. So x does not go directly from 1 to 2, maybe goes from 1 to 1.5, then 2. And the same for y. So if you add more data between x and y and extend this table, use more data points, your surface is not going to be as basically bumpy like this, and it's going to be smoother, right? So now, as I said, you can click here and add axis titles, right? And here, definitely you can change your axis title, correct? So you can add that, or if you want, you can select the x and y as well. They are not numbers, but they are going to give Excel an idea of what it would call this column and what it would call this column. Let's see. So if we go here and generate that again, you see? Now it is going to call this x, this is y. Now it might be a little bit not super nice here, and it could be. So it's up to you how you want to handle it. I personally prefer to just use this data and insert my surface, and then go ahead and add what? Go ahead and add axis titles, and if you remember, this one was x, this is y, and this one was z. Okay, and it shades different levels, different z levels with different colors. Now you might say, well, can I change anything here? Sure. For example, one of the most important things in 3D plots is to rotate them and look at them from different views. Can I do that here? Well, yes. How? So if I right click here, then it gives me an extra option, 3D rotation. And if I click on that, then it should allow me to rotate this guy. Well, let's go and see where it is. Here, it says 3D rotation. It has an angle for X, an angle for Y, and you can change those, right? So let's say here, I want to change the Y and I want to change the X. So you can put it at any angle that you want. Okay, you can do auto scale, you can do default rotation, and so on and so forth. You can change the amount of perspective on it, and so on. And here we go. That's my plot here. And as I said, you can right click here, and if you go to format chart data, then there are some options as well here for the background, and you can add some stuff here, right? Look, for example, if I change the color, what do you think would happen? Nothing. It's just for what? It's just for the axis. If you right click here directly on your surface, can you change anything about the surface? Because this is chart area, right? This is chart area, and if you change that, the background color is gonna change. If you click on outline, right, then the color of the data is gonna change. Okay, so if you can go to legend and go and look at the color. So here you see you have some color, and if you change that, it's gonna change the color of the legend box, not the surface. Okay, so here you have to see whether you can even click on the surface and whether it allows you to modify anything. Okay, that's important, whether Excel is allowing you to modify anything about the surface or not. Okay, so as far as it looks like right now, it is not allowing you to select the surface. You clearly can see that, right? That it does not allow me. So if you go, you can change the overall color, right? Or change the colors here. So here it gives you a theme. As you can see, I can change the overall theme of it, make it using 6 hot colors or cold colors, or a combination like this. Okay, so I have some options, shades of gray or anything that I want. Let's say I want, for example, this category, so you can change that. And again, you can make the background of it black, which is quite cool like this, right? But it's not like individual ones, at least not that I can see that you can change the individual ones. Okay, so I don't see anything like that. And no. Okay, so you can change the overall theme of it. And this chart, maybe it's a surface plot. Okay, that's a nice one. Also, if your data comes from a multidimensional function, you can create what we call the contour plots. Okay, so here, let's say you want to create a contour of these z levels. So you select all of this data, and then you go back to insert, you go here, and then generate a contour plot. And it gives you a contour plot if you want. Okay, so you see here, or let me see if I select the X and Y data, does it make any difference? So I select the X and Y data as well and go to contour plot again. And yes, it does show the X and Y axis, and now you can add the axis titles. Correct, and it shows all 3 of them, which is, you don't want the depth one, just the X and Y. So this is X, this is Y. Chart title could be contour plots. Okay, and can get rid of all of this white space it has. See? We can move this guy to the center. Okay. Does it allow me to move it? It does not. Oh, it seems like it messed up the contour plot as well. But I can do it again. That's not a big deal. So anyways, that's how you create what? That's how you create a contour plot, and you know what contour plots are, right? Contour plots are the same thing as the surface plot, but what you do is you collapse all of the surface on the flat XY plane, but you shade differently these different heights, or what they do most commonly is they cut the surface at different height levels. They get different section curves, and then they show all of those section curves on the flat XY plane. Okay, that's the typical contour plot that you see, right? So here is the shaded one, but let's see if you go with that wireframe. This is basically more similar to a typical contour plot, right? So if you don't want this, you can get rid of it and just add axis titles without, of course, depth, and call this X, call this guy Y, and this one to be the contour plot. Okay, so here is another plot that is not really 3D, but it comes from a 3D function, a multidimensional function. And again, you can do whatever you want to it. So let's just add some fancy color as well to this and make it nicer. Okay, so that's about this one. Of course not. No. Yeah, let's just keep it that way. Okay, so contour plot, surface plot, regular plot with several curves. The other thing you have is now a 2D plot called the histogram. And histogram, if you have a bunch of data, it divides the data into a few ranges. We call them bins or baskets, and it counts how many of the data falls within each bin. So what it really shows is what we call the distribution of the data, okay? How the data are distributed over different ranges. So here, let's say these are the grades from a class or some data that you got from some experiment, and you want to look at the distribution of this data. So what I do here is I select all of this data and then go to insert and then go here and select the histogram. Now Excel by default gives me 3 bins from 25 to 54, 54 to 83, 83 to 112. Now 112 is definitely not necessary because my max data is 100 as far as I can see, but my min data is 25. So it tells me that 5 data, if you look at the Y values, 5 data is within 25 to 54, 10 data is within 54 to 83, and then 8 data falls within 83 to 112. Okay, but now you can customize this histogram. Typically they use a bunch of more bins. Typically 3 is way small. A typical thing, they at least use like 10 bins or so. But the more data you have, the better would be this distribution, right? Because if you have, like here, I have only, what, 5, 10, and 8, I have 23 data. So with 23 data, 10 bins might be an overkill. But if you have hundreds, thousands of data, then 10 bins definitely a good one. So how can I modify this histogram? So what you can do is, first of all, let's add axis titles here, definitely. So here are the grades. And here is the frequency of, or counts. And the child title is definitely a histogram. Correct? And now how can you modify these bins? So if you right click here on the axis, on the x-axis, and say format axis, then here it gives you an option to change the bins. Instead of fixing the width of them automatically, you say, hey, I want to change the number of bins, and instead of 3, I want, let's say, 8 bins. Right? Or you can, instead, you can change their what? You can change the width of them. How much each bin should include, correct? So this is a different one. Or let's say maybe that's too much, I make it 5. Okay, or 6, or whatever I want. So you can change the size of the bins, and then there are other options too for tick marks, numbers, and so on. Those are not any major thing. And let's say here each bin is about 15 because my range is 75. But let's see, if I make my bins a little bit, or make the width of them about 10, then I have this range, and I'm starting at 25. Okay, and now if I want, I can change the color of some of these bins separately, right? For example, let me change it to something a little bit more reasonable. 15 was okay, let's say. So let's say anybody in this range of 85 to 100 is good. From 70 to 85 still acceptable. Between 55 to 70, not really okay. And these two are definitely bad grades. Okay, so here is a DC range, D range, FD range, but close to D. This is the CB range, this is the BA range. And can I change the color of each one individually? Yes. So here you see I can click on each one separately, and then I go and change this. Say, well, these are the green people because they're good. They definitely passed the class with a good grade. This category, they are okay. I would say they are blue. This category, they have to be careful. They are failing the course or getting a D, not failing, but necessarily doesn't mean they got a good grade, and you can use that grade as a prereq to something. So maybe yellow. And then these two, definitely, if I can select them individually, like this one or this one, definitely you need to change their color to maybe red, and maybe this one orange, or that one also red. Okay, so have to make sure you only select one. And here, so you can color code it like this. Okay, so you can modify the bin width or the number of bins. You can change the color of them and show the frequency of each data. Okay, that's mostly about the histogram. And as I said, when you go under format axis, you can change the number of bins. And here again, you can add some fancy stuff to it. You don't need to. And here is again the color and so on, and then text options. So that's mostly it. Now let's go to some other types of plots that I can show you. So one other type of plot, as I said, is the bar plot. So here, let's say this is the percentage of the total population in the US for different ethnicities: whites, African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, and others, right? Let's say I'm just made it, but they're not too far off from reality. So now I want to show this ethnic distribution in population in the US using a pie chart, right? So I select this data, and then I go to insert, and then I say insert for me a pie chart. Okay. Let's see. No. Okay. So that's okay. I just select the data alone. Say generate that for me, and it does. Now, instead of calling these different slices of the pie 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I want to call them white, African American, Hispanic, Asian, and others. So I right click here and go to select data, and the series 1, I change the horizontal values of it. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I click here and I say use these texts. Okay, and there we go. Now you clearly see that I can get what I want, right? Now, if I want, I can show the percentage, also these numbers, onto these slices as well, right? And all I need is, if I go here and go to data labels, I can either do data labels like this, or the one that is a little bit nicer is the callouts, this one. Okay, which shows them as with like a box and a leader, text box and a leader. Okay, so I always prefer this one, the callout, over get rid of this. So here, that's a pie chart, correct? One other nice fancy thing that you can do is, if you want to focus on any of these groups, you can move that slice out a little bit. We call it explosion. Bring it out a little bit, as if like you have cut that pie, the slice of that pie, and bringing it out. Well, how can you do that? That's another interesting thing. So here you can select these slices individually, as you can see. Let's say I want to take this slice of Hispanics and bring them out a little bit to separate them a little. So I clicked on it. You see, I could select it. And now, if you look at this format data point here, there is something here called point explosion. And if you give it some percentage, you see the slice is coming out. So let's say 15% explosion. There we go. You see, so this explosion is quite a nice feature. I like this with a pie plot. So this is a pie plot. That's one of the plots that you can do, and it's very useful. The other thing you can do, if you have one category of data which are mostly non-numeric, and another category, another set of numbers that are numeric, another one is a bar plot. Similar to this, but using vertical bars instead of slices of pie, right? So again, here I can go and select this data, go to insert, and create a bar plot. Now the bar plot could be horizontal, vertical. It can have this 3D effect, which is quite nice, I would say. I like this over this one, but it's up to you. So let's say I create this, right? That's beautiful. And again, I go here and go to select data and change my horizontal values to these guys here. Okay, and boom, there we go. Okay, so this is the bar plot here with 3D effect. So that's for this one. Now, the last category that I would like to talk about is a box plot. So here, let's say these are the percentages of grades A, B, C, D, and F in several classes. Okay, class 1, class 2, classroom, class 3, class 4, section, or section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you want to show these on a plot with a box that shows, For example, grade A has what kind of distribution? Grade B has what kind of distribution? Grade C, grade D, and grade F across these different sections of the class. So this kind of looks like that 3D plot, but I don't want really a 3D plot. I want a 2D plot, which can show them. And one of the things you can do is to go and insert a box plot called box and whisker, which is under histogram. If you click on this box and whisker plot, what it does is here it shows a box plot for the distribution of, as I said, grade A, which is this blue color, B is this one, C, D, and F. And each set of these 5 numbers comes with a box and whisker plot, where the top end and bottom end of the whiskers, these antennas, show the minimum and maximum. Then here you have the center or the average, and here you have an interquarter range or the mid 50% of the data inside this box. And what is interquarter range? I'll talk about it in a future video, but here it shows where the 50% middle of the data is, where is the average of the data, where is the mean, where is the max. So it kind of shows the statistical distribution of the data for that specific category. And now, if you want, I can add a legend here. To show me. Now here you see I chosen name series 1, 2, 3, but if you did it by selecting this ABCD, it would give you the name of the legends as ABCD. So let me do that. So now if I go and add a legend, it should give me the names for each, and if I want I can get rid of this, and this is showing me a box and whisker plots. Okay, so these are different types of plots, as I said, and hopefully this lecture was useful to you. Now, it doesn't mean I told you everything about creating plots in Excel, but I told you the most important ones. Thank you. See you in the next video.